Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, and this is your Cannabis Business Podcast. Today, we're going to dive into a report from Headset asking, is weed the new beer? We're going to follow up with another kind of a Headset blog about pre-rolls, cannabis beverages, and the seasonality trends between them. On the line with us is Dan Kimmis, our CBD correspondent with Good CBD Products.
You know, I travel the country, but I rely on Headset reporting, Chronic. I dig them.
I'm looking forward to interviewing Cy Scott, CEO of Headset and founder of Leafly. There's a Lemon Haze event coming up next month at the Tacoma Dome in Washington, where I'll be interviewing, or doing a panel rather, for a technology panel with Cy Scott being one of them. So interested as always to see what he's got to say. I believe that I think he's on one of these blogs as his own insight, but we'll get to that. First up is weed the new beer. So the report examines the developing beverage category, offering insights into the evidence from Constellation Brands, massive $4.5 billion investment, all the way down to granular reports on where you can get flavors and profiles. That's probably separate from this report, but Headset offers a lot of cool stuff.
Yeah, it's funny. We projected for a long time that one of the big conflicting interests is going to be that casual sip at the bar, beer, wine, etc., that interest butting up against the cannabis market and the nature of both the new consumers that come into the market. Like if you were given a choice, cannabis beer or like cannabis drink or beer, right? Which one are you going to buy? And in the margins, some of those long-term consumers, right? The whole thing of like, hey, geez, I think I'm going to move off beer and move over here to THC water, that kind of thing. It's a huge thing. It's a huge market, and it's massive business, and it's happening. You can actually see it out there on the ground.
Definitely. A lot of restaurants you and I have been to separately offering CBD water. The THC CBD water article you just sent me is another example of that. Diving into this article from Headset, they say over the last 2 years, the beverages have seen a steady growth, both in overall sales and market share. Market share is pretty low overall, but they are seeing kind of an exponential growth as it doubles. So Laguntas only jumped into the infused beverage market last June, and a few other THC-infused alcohol replacement offerings are backed by brands even half as big. So a few years of marketing from a company with experience selling drinkable intoxicants could really change the game, especially as advertising rules for cannabis are eased, end quote. And so, looking at January 2017 with 3 million in sales, it looks like it spikes for 420 to about 4.5 million. And then right now, June of 2019, 2 years later, we're only about a third more than we were 2 years ago. So just kind of clearing that $4.2 million mark for the beverage markets between Colorado, Nevada, and Washington. I think what we're going to focus on is the convenient factor between joints and beverages, as you kind of have that twist and go model. With the exception of coffee, Washington, get your shit together.
Boy, you're passionate sometimes. I dig it.
Sorry, I like my coffee. So beverages by state, we're looking at Washington and Colorado have split the beverage market pretty evenly over the last 2 years. Nevada only began selling the category at the end of 2017, as it accounted for a little over 1 million in sales each quarter. So while Washington has had slightly higher beverage sales for a few quarters last year, it wasn't exactly a trend. Colorado outsold Washington in Q4 2018. So it's hard to say that the consistency of the breakdown, what that means, but the article says that they'll be able to infer what that means down the road. It's possible that both states offering beverages around the same time helped establish their place in the retail environment as something of an interesting add-on and have kept both markets from ever ballooning. So talking about Canada and their rollout 2.0, October 17th, but products probably won't roll out until late December, maybe even first quarter 2020. And so they'll have infused beverages and some concentrates, more concentrates. So yeah, very interesting in kind of how that develops. Yeah, just looking at the other states and how they develop, I said this is interesting the way that Canada might develop and roll out in the same way that other emerging markets have, where people go in, they're really excited, they spend a lot of money on flower, and then they find eventually what they're looking for, which could be a topical or tincture or a beverage, edible, joint, whatever. initially the flower sales are high, and then people start to diversify and increase the number of basket, or the number of items in their basket. And even with total beverages shares by state, looking at Colorado, Nevada, Washington, they pretty much all have doubled. It took Washington and Colorado about 3 years for them to go to about from 2.1 to 4.2 million in sales. But soda definitely reigns supreme. I'm not really a fan of the sugary drinks. I'd like to see some of that water come out, or something with electrolytes. Just something other than sugary drinks would be nice.
Well, I'd just like to see consistency in even the sugary drinks. Like if you look at our home states of Washington and Oregon, the way that brands have come and gone, the way that specific products underneath the brands have come and gone, right? Of course, emergent market, so you would expect it. But as a consumer, the whole thing of, geez, that last one was only above average. I don't know if I'm going to try their next one, right? Again, as a consumer, let's face it, you want awesome when you start.
Looking at the breakdown from this headset report, it looks like carbonated beverages still account for about 40% of the market. Quarter of the market is the drops, mixes, elixirs, tincture syrups. About 1/5 of the market is iced tea, lemonade, fruit drinks. And then coffee, tea, and hot cocoa are less than 5%. Definitely seasonal, something that we see a lot of sales during Christmas and holiday season, but not so much year round.
Oh, as a Santa, I want me some infused cocoa. Ho, ho!
Yeah, and that trend is pretty similar between all of the states when you look at beverage sales by segment and who's selling what. Washington sells a lot of carbonated drinks. Nevada sells iced teas and lemonades. California might have a lot more mocktails. I don't know if that's terpenes or whatever mocktails consists of, but each region kind of has their own thing.
There will be a leveling at some point. Someday there's going to be 5 or 10, core beverage products. It's going to be like beer. And along the way, the whole thing of, will my favorite product end up being one of the products, right? Like if you're in Washington today, you've probably seen 8 or 10 different brands and bottles come in and out of your favorite cannabis store over the course of the 4 or 5 year run. And right now, there's some wonderful brands, and you can buy a couple of really neat drinks. And at the same time, who knows what's going to bring tomorrow, right? Or tomorrow brings, and all of that.
What's also neat is I've talked about it in the beginning of the podcast about the availability with headset reports to get granular data based on zip codes. So if you have a trendy neighborhood that likes root beer versus, a more urban neighborhood that wants orange or grape soda, these reports can give you that granular data to determine how much inventory and where sales are occurring, as well as the price point. So it's interesting to look at the carbonated prices and how they range from 10 to 25 versus the elixirs that are much more expensive because they're a concentrate. And then the tea and coffee are kind of like all over the place, but not cheap. It's between $10 and $25. I don't know if that's 10 milligrams. It doesn't say. But for grab and go versus, Starbucks, that's already outrageously expensive. Definitely not what consumers are asking for, which is that's the highest THC at the lowest price or within their price point.
Yeah, in Oregon recently, I picked up a little jar, 880 milligrams for $125. Suffice it to say, that was a neat product trial. That was fun.
So the next slide says the devil is in the dosage. So looking at what products sell best by milligrams of THC, the 100 milligram products made the most in 2017 with a 90% market share. That's now only 67%. I know a lot of people that like to microdose or just want like 5 to 10 milligrams. I don't like the Canadian rules that have 10 milligram packages that or 10 milligram serving sizes that we also have, but they have a 30 milligram total and we have 100. That's still not enough for the total package, but hopefully they'll be able to figure this out and just normalize it.
Oh, the patient knows best, and really, restricting the patient, geez, you've got to buy these in singles. It's just egregious packaging and it's egregious pricing.
You said consumers know best, and so who is the consumer? The beverage market share by generation shows that the silent generation, those are the ones that are older than the baby boomers, Their beverage market share is about 2.5% versus, millennials at less than 1%. Generation X doesn't even reach 2%. So yeah, it looks like the older generation is really liking themselves some beverages. In terms of basket size, 2% of baskets contain at least one beverage in 2019. But what about CBD? Dan, you're our CBD correspondent. We're looking at the percentage of CBD in edible products that contain CBD as a primary ingredient, telling us an interesting story. CBD having its moment, and demand for CBD infused everything is taking off, but it's partly because of the cannabis industry, especially products that you eat and drink, end quote. Looking at market share from CBD in 2016, it was maybe 10% for beverages, where now it's exceeding, it's reaching 30%, triple in
So
3 years.
in the last 2 weeks, I have had CBD soda at a variety of restaurants. Okay. I had a CBD beef sandwich. Okay. I had some CBD. It was pie topping. Okay. I had some CBD salsa. Okay. Again, yes, CBD is going everywhere. So it's an interesting market space in that, what I can tell you is this. There's a lot of product out there, and there's also there's more coming, right? That's the thing. CBD having its moment, yes, and that moment continues to expand. It's getting bigger. So it's a longer moment.
Yeah, we've seen CBD clothing and crazy stuff, but to conclude this CBD market size report from Headset, it said that the beverage market, while not massive, presents several unique insights about the state of the cannabis industry. First and foremost, it shows us how the piecemeal, state-by-state pattern of legalization affects sales. Even among states that legalize at the same time, like Colorado and Washington, price and consumer preferences vary wildly, as experienced by their data on flavors. Had cannabis been legalized at a federal level, they might see that a lot more consistency across the board, as brands would be nationwide, not limited to individual states. While many brands do cross state lines, the first to market each brand in each state are still going to take primary priority and shape the market. Like we said, first mover advantages, right? So that said, there are still some overreaching trends to the category. Sodas aren't just popular in Washington. They're enjoying a healthy share of the market in other states as well. They're also growing that share, with mocktails joining them with the growing segment. Drops, mixes, elixirs, and syrups have been significant players in the beverage market in the past, but increased interest in beverages as a discrete package consumable with 6-pack of beer or 20-ounce soda could shift the market away from that segment. Article goes on to say, quote, indeed, that trends that do stand out in the beverage market point to this becoming an even more of a thing, especially in dosage. The average cannabis consumer doesn't have enough tolerance to imbibe an entire 100 milligram beverage in one sitting. So a lot of those were probably divisible in a smaller dosage via dropper or attached cup. So the rise in low dose products suggests that the single serve products are gaining in popularity. It's premature to say that 5 milligram sodas will become ubiquitous at backyard barbecues, but the theory that non-drinkers are turning to cannabis drinks as an alternative isn't entirely untenable. Overall, the beverage category is one to watch which direction it takes, either towards a single serve mass market consumable or back towards a specialty cannabis product. It has a lot to say about consumer preference in cannabis more generally. I've definitely seen an increase in microdosing. I spoke to a gentleman who said as soon as they introduced microdosing, it turned into 3 times more sales than his high dose. It still was a big driver, but the speed in which he was selling was increasing faster, even though more revenue was going towards high CBD products. He was seeing an increased demand for low dose.
Oh, no doubt. Again, when you look at, any given block of customers, you're going to have those, excessive users or heavy users. You're also going to have those dabblers, and there's always more dabblers than there are, the other. I think that the consumer market for this chronic is vast, and I dig it.
No doubt. Let's just dive into this other report about the seasonality between pre-rolls and cannabis beverages. So pre-rolls have a seasonal trend as well. So both in Colorado and Washington, it tends to outperform the market in spring and early summer, and then underperform in the fall, in the heart of winter. So on the other hand, Nevada has data with more sporadic peaks and valleys. Pre-rolls tend to underperform in January, July, and November, but do well in February, May, August, and October. So what it seems to suggest is that the climate and seasonal tourism plays a role in cannabis sales in these states. In Colorado, Washington, it can be unpleasant to smoke outside in the cold, but pre-roll sales dip during the colder months and surge in the warmer months when people gather outside and socialize more. In Nevada, frigid temperatures aren't an issue, although heat certainly is in July. And so they see November and January are typically months where family time is favored over gambling trips or bachelor parties, suggesting that perhaps seasonal tourism plays an even stronger role in Nevada.
Really interesting from the perspective of subtle cultural norms, etc., and how that impacts big picture economics, right?
Yeah, it's interesting that the difference in pre-roll sales in Nevada between October and November is a 20% difference. I don't know if that's random or what that really means, but there's cannabis beverage trends as well. So in Washington and Colorado, they've consistently outperformed the market in December, indicating that they have a popular item as gifts or holiday parties. And in Washington, they've always underperformed in January, but in Colorado, they slightly outperform. Perhaps visitors to Colorado for ski vacations are turning to cannabis beverages for their enjoyment. So July is a good month for beverages in Washington and Colorado, but average in Nevada, indicating that sales may be centered around summer celebrations in places where it's pleasant to be outside during the summer.
Makes sense, right? And again, from a business perspective, knowing what you're facing, right? Knowing that, okay, oh, that's right, we're coming close to Christmas, and gosh, we've got this new item, this new SKU. It should be popular at parties. Let's make a lot of them, right? Knowing, because then that's I guess that's why you subscribe to Headset.
I love Headset. So we're going to wrap this up. As the cannabis market grows and more robust data will become available, allowing state market trends to become even clearer throughout each stage of growth, Headset will continue to provide the astute analysis customers need to plan well and stay ahead of the curve. Most definitely, I've used Headset's data for a bottling company, a beverage soda company, to get that granular data, to find out what the inventory should be, what the flavor preferences should be, what the sales expectations should be. And so any business that is interested should definitely be taking a look at Headset. Definitely interested in diving some more detail with some more reports with you. But for now, we're going to wrap that up. This is a Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't.